Hey, everybody. This is the Innovation Conversation. How you doing, Tom?
I'm good, Kevin. How are you, sir?
Good to see you. You have a good holiday?
I did. Happy New Year.
Yeah, you too. Um, so the first story I wanted to talk about today is this really interesting story from, I keep wanting to call it the Consumer Electronics Show, but I guess that's the old name. They just call it CES, which neither of us are at. I would have liked to have gone, but I just can't see going to Vegas right now. I mean,
I registered and canceled my travel on last Sunday.
yeah, I think a month from now, when NGA is scheduled to be in Vegas, I think it'll be a different story, because I think all the reports seem to be that they expect Omicron to sort of back off at that point. So, but right now, between CES and NRF, those are badly positioned. I'm not going to NRF. I'm certainly not going to NRF and hang out with all those people at the Javits Center. That just seems like a really bad idea.
Yeah, no thanks.
All right. So, but there's a story I thought that was really interesting that came out of CES. And it was about how BMW has now come up with a car. It's called the iX Flow. And basically, with the touch of a button, you can change the color of the car from white to black or black to white. And it uses what they call digital paper developed by a company called E-Ink, according to TechCrunch. Now, right now, it's just black to white, white to black. But
sounds like something out of a spy movie that
exactly.
like the criminals would use.
Well, or Bond, right? They could change the license plate, and maybe guns come out of the turrets or something.
Yeah.
But eventually they say it'll be more. They'll be able to do more colors. And I just thought this was really interesting on a number of levels. One of which is, boy, this tells us a lot about customization and personalization and where that's all going, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just think that so much of the world, everything has gone to personalization, right? How you consume information, how you consume entertainment and media, right? And ultimately, I think how you consume products and how products are tailored to you. Right. I think that's going to continue to be a trend that's going to drive a lot of commerce.
The interesting thing about this, and I have talked about this before on Morning Newsbeat, and it's a pet peeve I have with the auto industry, is that it's interesting to me that this is a highly high tech solution to what I guess they're seeing as a consumer problem or issue, which is, I want to be able to change the color of my car. It shouldn't always be the same color. I shouldn't have to buy a new car to get a different color car. And I've thought for years that one of the things that the auto industry or some auto manufacturer ought to do is create a much more flexible program of car colors. I mean, so I have a dark gray Mustang, right? But if I were going to replace it, I would love a color like close to a British racing green.
Oh yeah,
right. That would be totally cool. Put the top down, it'd be awesome.
Yeah.
And yet, that's not a color that Ford offers. I think there's like 5 colors. It's like black, gray, white, and a really hideous orange and a hideous green. But if Ford said to me, "Hey, listen, we'll pick 100 colors, right? So we have it won't be unlimited, but we'll pick 100 colors. You pick any one of those 100 colors, and you can have the car in that shade. But here's the deal: it's going to cost you an extra $500 or $1,000, and it's going to take you an extra 2 to 3 weeks to get it."
Yeah,
I think I'd sign up for that, and I think a lot of people would, and it would give Ford or whoever decided to do it a real differential advantage in the marketplace. And to me, that's a low-tech solution to the same problem. And I wonder if there's if you would agree, and B, is there a metaphor there for retailers who are trying to figure out to what degree to embrace technology to solve what they see as being consumer issues?
Right. Yeah. I think that would be really cool. Right. And I'm sure there's research out there, and I'm sure the automakers probably even know like how important color is to folks, or, you could certainly do enough research to see how differentiating that could be. And yeah, like mass customization, right? Something like that, where you had, if there's 100, I'm just doing the math, say there's 100 different colors, and I don't know, you're producing 50,000 cars a day, 10, I don't know, 20, how many thousands of cars a day you'd produce out of a certain plant,
Well,
right?
less over the last 4 months, right? But
True, true, right. But just assuming that, like, yeah, you could know, like, okay, the 100th rated color, might be 5 out of 10,000 cars. But if there's a way you could, cost effectively, do that, like have a bay with the right, settings, and you could do that. That would be, I think that would be pretty cool. So yeah, there's probably some light technology in there to enable that to happen, but a pretty cool customer experience. Yeah, I mean, I think, for any retailer, I mean, the challenge of kind of a lot of personalization is you want to make sure you got to be careful with like crazy SKU proliferation, right? Like part of the challenge we've had in the retail industry, and part of the reason that center stores are stocked with so many SKUs, is that we've gotten, we've got long tails in some cases of variety, or of flavors, or varieties of different SKUs. That can get unwieldy to manage, but excuse me, in an e-commerce world where you have some centralized facilities and whatnot, you could absolutely do that. And you just have to use your digital experiences to work with your customers to determine where it is and where it is they would like to customize. And I bet manufacturers too would have some pretty good data, from their own direct consumer engagements on personalization opportunities.
Beyond that, I mean, and this sort of ties into a session that we're scheduled to do at NGA in Vegas next month, where we're going to do an innovation conversation, but we're going to have Scott Moses as sort of a special guest. Scott is so in touch with the economic side of the business, and working with independents to help them find ways to be viable and set priorities. And it seems to me that, and I've done enough of these sessions where you talk about, okay, robotics, right? Okay, and why independent retailers who have anywhere from 3 to 30 stores ought to have, maybe ought to embrace robotics, but maybe not. I mean, maybe they have to set priorities and that say, okay, listen, I can meet that customer need without necessarily making the big bet, the big financial bet that I might necessarily, that a high tech solution might cost. In other words, if you want to provide deliveries, you don't necessarily have to invest in drones, right? There is a solution that is quite both figuratively and literally more down to earth to meet that customer need. And that's when I think about when I use the BMW versus Ford metaphor, that's sort of what I'm thinking. That the retailers need to figure out how to set reasonable, audacious goals maybe, but reasonable priorities in terms of how they're going to get there.
Well, absolutely. And also, a prototyping and testing strategy that's not automated. Right. Like I know at Amazon, everything we did was done, was done manually before it was automated. Right. And you progress and advance the manual, either manual or computer assisted manual, right? Where maybe a device can help you be more efficient with what you're doing physically. Take that as far as you can take it, and then model what the benefit of the robotics would be after that. And then you can determine what the ROI is on making that investment in robotics. And the cost of robotics is coming down and down and down. It's still pretty expensive, but it's a lot less than it used to be.
And I'm not just picking on robotics, right?
Yeah. Just as an example.
Solutions out there that, and there's 1,000 consultants trying to figure out, helping people to make decisions. And I'm just saying, I guess all I'm saying is that, again, to use the car metaphor, if you're trying to figure out how to give people more options to colors, it doesn't have to be digital paper on a car. There's other ways to get to that end.
Absolutely.
Right.
For sure.
The other story that was interesting this week, and it touches on this whole, how to make deliveries and doing it in a more down to earth way, or not, is the story about how Instacart, I guess, is considering a deal with a company called Tortoise. And Tortoise has these robotic, what they're calling is floating dark stores, but they're not, I mean, they're not that big. So it's not like they're big stores, as a way of servicing neighborhoods, in a more customizable way. It's interesting that Instacart's doing it, because it's not entirely clear to me that Instacart is doing it necessarily for its client retailers. It could be doing it for its own independent independent retail offering, if and when it chooses to go in that direction. But again, I'm fascinated by this idea of rolling dark stores, wandering around neighborhoods trying to fulfilling orders to consumers.
Yeah, I mean they're interesting. I'm trying to describe them. They're kind of the size of almost like a rolling, like like your trash gondola or something.
Yeah.
Like that size.
They look like double file cabinets almost, with low.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah. The low ones, the ones that are kind of below your waist height.
Right.
Yeah. And so they're not very big. So clearly you have to be super informed as to which inventory to have in there. One of the things, the article I read, the Business Insider article, one of the things it said is, a lot of pre-configured assortments, right? So like chips, dip, and soda, right? And if that's the way people shop, then that can be good. If you have enough intelligence to really cover a bunch of needs through that's interesting, because I think they only carry about 100 units in each of these robots.
And that's units. That's not SKUs.
That's not SKUs. That's units, right? So yeah, what do you have? 10 or less probably SKUs. I would guess in each. So I mean, it's interesting. I applaud everyone there for this for trying this innovation. The units seem to me to be kind of similar units to some of the other ones you see that will do you can just put a full grocery order in one unit, and it can go and deliver that robotically or remotely to an individual. I think this is just another use case for that same technology. I get interesting concepts. I just think there's a heavy burden on getting the assortment of inventory in those guys right.
Yeah. Again, what really interests me about it is that I mean, beyond the hardware, right? Which it's the idea of the software, which if you use it correctly, and I'm making, I guess, a little bit of leap here, but it's not hard to imagine. You should be able to analyze shopper data from a specific neighborhood, and then put together a targeted and a relatively customized selection that goes into that neighborhood, that is different in the morning than it is at lunchtime, than it is in the middle of the afternoon, and in the evening and after dinner, right? I mean, you can think of 5 very specific day parts where those 100 items, those 100 could be very, very different.
Absolutely. And the more experience you have with that, the more informed the system can be. And so you can get smarter and smarter with what is contained in those to be relevant to the customers.
Which always, to me, points out the degree to which so many retailers have the same, out of maybe 40,000 SKUs in their store, anywhere from 30 to 35,000 of them might be exactly the same, right? And it actually doesn't even matter what neighborhood the store is in, or they're right.
There's staples, right?
There's staples. There's too many cookie cutter things, and it's not just the items, but it's the facings, and it's the whole thing. And the degree to which retailers have to start to use the data in a smarter, more customized way, and rethink the store itself if they're going to be relevant going forward.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as customer engagement models evolve to be, the combination of traditional store, pickup, delivery, auto replenishment, quick 10-minute delivery, right? I mean, it's all the physical store, the physical store's role of carrying inventory for the customer absolutely evolves. And so that whole piece of the equation, it's kind of exciting actually, but that whole piece of the equation can be rethought. I think it can actually make that function of the store even more effective. And the really exciting thing that is building around that, all the exciting, services and fresh foods and, other great things you can build to make that experience awesome.
Yeah. And to go back to the car thing for a minute, to come full circle, I was reading a story the other day about how, one of the things that car retailers have learned during the past 4 or 5 months of supply chain issues and not having the kind of inventory they used to have on their lots, right? It used to be, and the story made the point that, Americans actually shop for cars very differently than Europeans, right? Because Americans go onto a car lot and they half expect to be able to say, yeah, I want to try that one. They try it and then to be able to drive off, which is why retailers tend to keep a lot of inventory. Because that's what the car lots wanted to do too. They wanted to put you in a car and send you off if they could possibly do it. And that's not really the way it works in Europe, in part because they don't have those giant lots.
Right.
And so in Europe, people would be more likely to come in, decide what they wanted, and then the car, they would either find it already built someplace where the manufacturer is, or they would build it for them.
Right.
And therefore they could have exactly what they want. And they're saying that model is going to become much more appropriate in America. You're going to go for a car, but the odds are much better you're going to have to wait for it. And
I can see that. You could still you can still manufacture a variety of configurations of the car, have them staged in different places, right? And then the more popular configurations will be closer to more people. You have more of those spread around.
Right.
The less popular ones, you might, in Connecticut, your configuration might be in Illinois.
Right.
So it'd have to be transported from Illinois. Okay, that costs you an extra $500 or whatever. Right. Dealable to get what you want. I can see that. I can see that happening. My son actually works for Carvana, and that's a kind of a used car model, right. And they do some new too, but that's a used car model that's kind of like that.
Yeah.
Where they draw off the broader inventory, and you can get what you want, and all certified on that.
Isn't that essentially what Amazon is built for? That they have all the right merchandise and the right.
Oh, absolutely. That's
right?
Both balancing the network. Absolutely.
So they can get it on the truck, and that's what to get it to me as fast as they can get it, based on both my previous shopping habits and knowing how many times I look at things before they've got all those algorithms.
Yep.
And that's at the end of the day, whether they use a high-tech solution, a high-tech solution, or a low-tech solution, that's what retailers have to compete with.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Yep.
Well, we will leave it there. Again, Happy New Year. Great to see you. And I will see you in 2 weeks as we do another edition of the Innovation Conversation.
Looking forward to a great 2022.
Take care. See ya.
Thanks, Kevin.